Yeah, moving on to the mess. And our first mess comes in our number two guy. And I'm gonna jump to Harrison Bader. And this is not a good conversation to have. We said it a little bit on our two episodes ago. Harrison Bader, who we thought would be locked in to play 130, 140 games in center field for us, already starting the season with a significant injury. We acquired him via trade last year. He was dealing with a plantar fascia issue in his foot, was our best playoff hitter. Just popped like 5 homers in the playoffs out of nowhere. Big power potential. Someone who we thought would have a Gold Glove level center field locked up now. Center field all of a sudden is in flux. Um, what do you think of the Bader situation, and how does that impact Judge? How does that impact the rest of our fielders?
I'm just as disappointed about him missing significant time as anyone, just because I've been on the Bader train since he got traded over here. I remember being, I think maybe I was one of the few people that was just genuinely excited when I saw that trade go through. Just because I know a lot of people were very attached to Montgomery, and I liked Monty a lot, but what he did for us in the playoffs, you can't overlook it. He clearly unleashed some kind of power display that was in his bat the entire time. Like, he's built to hit for pop, and he's got the velocity. Sorry, not the velocity. The capability with his legs to leg out doubles and triples on a frequent basis if he gets this, like, the playing time that we were hoping out of him. That being said, well, and on top of that, he's going into a contract season, so you really hope that he's able to put up numbers that allow him to either stay here long term or get a bigger contract going somewhere else. I think he just has, if you're talking about the player alone without the injuries, he has the perfect fit to be a Yankee long term. And it really sucks to see him in a position where he's not going to be able to help us at least until May. If we're lucky, we'll get him mid-May. If that would be best case scenario, I think we're looking realistically more closer to June. But who knows? Obliques are very tough to, get a good hold of. So all you got to do is kind of hope that he sorts himself out. But he was supposed to be the anchor in the outfield defensively, where you can move Judge back to right field, get him off his feet a few days in terms of playing the outfield constantly. He can DH from time to time. Now Judge doesn't have that luxury of being able to be off his feet. He's going to play more left field, which is a brand new position for him. And like I said, I'm excited to see him out there, but I'm also going to be holding my breath every time he has to dive for a ball or play a ball in the corner. It's just one more thing to have to worry about, that it feels almost like unnecessary at this point, and just another headache to add to the circus that is the outfield situation.
Yeah, and whereas Judge came out publicly and said that he's going to play not as hard, but he's not going to die for every ball in May. He's going to be selective with his routes and conserving his body throughout a long season. We saw that come to fruition last year, and that enables his offensive value and his
Yeah.
MVP Hall of Fame level offensive value. Whereas Bader's value comes in his athletic ability. And, we saw Jake said he was excited to see Bader. We went to go see Aaron Judge in a home run race, sitting on 59 home runs. And Jake on the ticket line to get in was itching himself to watch Harrison Bader play his first game for the Yankees. This is a guy who we saw 2 full seasons in St. Louis, only in 2018 and 19. He had 138 games in 2018, 128 games in 2019. In 2018, he had a base running runs above average of 7.6, which is really elite. Like, that's like top four, top five in the National League, if not number one. And his overall offensive batting and base running combined runs above average was 11.2. But he hit about 264, slugging of about 400. The next year, he put together another 130 game season. He had a batting average of 205, on base of 314, slugging also down. His base running value was only a point 0.7. He was dealing with some injuries then. So even though his defensive runs above average was 13.3, his offensive output was a -9 because of his hitting. Um, and he's a very aggressive hitter. He'll be pretty solid defensively because he's very efficient as well as very athletic and fast. But his elite value comes from his base running, comes from his throwing, comes from the added highlight level play that he can make. And also he has a very violent swing. So any trigger wrong in his swing is going to throw him off significantly. Those are the most games that he played. He played the full season in 2020, so you can't knock him for that. It was only 50 games, only 103 last year, and then only 86 last year and 103 the year before, combined between the Yankees and St. Louis. He didn't have a good offensive showing in his few weeks with the Yankees, though he gave that value. But it's tough to see. We hope that he comes back and he's fully healthy. They're probably going to be conservative with him and cover him up, but it opens up our whole outfield for a lot of different moving parts.
Every time I think about the potential that he has when he's on the field, I mean, I'd say in terms of just general baseball awareness and where he needs to be spacing, all that stuff, situationally speaking, him and Volpe are probably the two like-minded players that are going to be on this roster at some point this season. So just imagine a lineup where you have Volpe leading off and then you have Bader in the 9 spot. And that excites me so much because that gives Judge the opportunity to hit with 2 elite runners in front of him. So that's why I'm like pulling my hair out right now. It's like this dude can easily, if he stays healthy for a full season or close to a full season, he's got 20 homers, 20 to 25 homers with 35 to 45 stolen bases in him. So it's just really tough to see a player like that go down. And you got to hope that he's back and he's fully healthy and this thing doesn't linger when he does come back, because that would be even worse. And that would be the final blow to any chance we had of like re-signing him, you know. But I just want to see this dude succeed, and he is the best thing that could happen to the Yankees as like a early season acquisition from the roster.
Yeah, and that's what it'll end up feeling like, because he'll be out for a decent amount of time, in acquisition throughout the year. And if he can come in to solidify, booster that bottom part of the lineup, he adds a pop potential, he adds base running potential. So when you get to like the catchers or the guys who are going to end up at the bottom of the lineup, who we'll talk about today, he just adds that extra bit of threat on the bases, or as someone who can run into one. You can't just groove by the bottom, and that'll be really huge. Fangraphs and Baseball Reference have different projections for him. Fangraphs has him at about 500 at bats and 120 games, which I don't see being plausible. I think he's going to be out for over 40 even to start the year. Baseball Reference is more conservative and has a 75% reliability at about 400 plate appearances, which puts him at about 90 games, I would say. That's more reasonable, and I'm optimistic for that. They have only 11 homers, 42 RBI, 250 batting average, 711 OPS. I think that's kind of the player that he is and what you should expect from him. Maybe even 15 homers, depending on how much time he gets. He can run into a few, and he had a good power stroke. But I think that's in line with what we'll see, and if he stays healthy once upon his return.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. And I agree with that line. I think that he just needs to play over 70% or 60% of the season at this rate, 65, and we'll be satisfied, and just make it a good 65%. Yeah, it's gonna just keep me being in a sad mood if I keep on thinking about his injury. And also to credit with the swing, it does remind me a lot of Bryce Harper early on in his career, just the way that he uses his entire body to torque. So maybe he learns how to conserve that motion just a little bit. And that, I'm sure that's what led to the oblique injury, just all of that twisting. So maybe that's something he comes back with a little bit retooled. So we'll see.